She went to dinner because of the lamb. This was the official position, and she was maintaining it. Not because Karim had written her a note in careful, spare handwriting that had somehow lodged itself in her chest like a splinter she couldn't locate. Not because staying in the East Wing room for another 4 hours would have driven her fully out of her mind. The lamb. That was the reason. She was a food photographer occasionally. She had standards, and she was not going to let a security situation stand between her and a reportedly exceptional Zafari lamb dish. This was journalism, broadly construed. She wore the only clean outfit Nadia had been able to source on short notice. A deep blue dress that was slightly too formal for how she felt, and slightly too loose at the shoulders, which meant she spent the first 10 minutes of the evening making subtle adjustments that she hoped looked like confidence. They did not look like confidence. Tariq, who met her at the top of the main staircase, looked at the dress and then at her face, and had the decency to say nothing, which she appreciated enormously. "You look wonderful," he said. "You just said you'd say nothing." "I said nothing critical. There's a distinction." He offered his arm with the theatrical gallantry of a man who is genuinely enjoying himself. "Shall we? Father's already at the table. Karim is also already at the table." "Why did you pause before Karim's name?" "I didn't pause." "You absolutely paused." "I was breathing," Tariq said serenely. "I do that. It's a habit I've developed. Come." The dining room was smaller than she'd expected. Not intimate exactly, but human in scale, with low brass lanterns and a long table set for 6. The sheikh sat at the head, already in conversation with a man she didn't recognize. Karim sat to his father's right, in a dark shirt, no tie, and looked up when she entered with an expression so carefully neutral it constituted its own form of information. Yasmin sat to the sheikh's left. She had dressed for the evening with the precision of someone who understands that clothing is a form of argument. She smiled at Lara with great warmth. "Lara," she said, "I'm so glad you could join us." "Thank you for having me," Lara said, with equal warmth, because she had also grown up with manners and she was not going to let a woman in a better dress win on that particular field. She sat. The 6th chair, between Tariq and the unknown man, across from Karim, was hers. She unfolded her napkin. She looked at the table. The lamb had not yet arrived, but the smell coming from the direction of the kitchen was extraordinary, and she felt briefly, purely, uncomplicated by anything. "This is Dr. Nasser," the sheikh said, indicating the unknown man. 50s, reading glasses on a chain, the gentle, distracted energy of an academic. "He is our chief archivist. When Tariq mentioned your work, I thought you might enjoy meeting him." "Your photographs of the Syrian ruins were published in National Geographic," Dr. Nasser said immediately, with the intensity of someone who has been waiting to say this since he sat down. "The series on the Euphrates Valley. I have them on my office wall." "That's very kind," she said, and meant it. "The one with the shadow of the minaret at sunrise. How did you achieve the exposure? The foreground detail is extraordinary given the backlight." "Nasser," the sheikh said, with affectionate warning. "I'm just asking about the exposure." "After dinner." Across the table, Karim's mouth moved. She caught it this time. Unmistakable, brief, the corner lifting just a fraction before he looked back down at his glass. Her own mouth wanted to respond, and she pressed her lips together and looked at Tariq, who was radiating silent delight like a small personal sun. The lamb arrived 20 minutes in, and it was, in fact, worth whatever complicated thing she was navigating to be here. Slow cooked with preserved lemon and a spice combination she couldn't fully identify but wanted to. Something warm and faintly smoky beneath the saffron. Something that tasted like the desert would taste if the desert were edible and had good judgment. She photographed it before eating it. No one at the table commented on this, which told her Tariq had briefed them. "You photograph food as well as ruins?" Yasmin asked pleasantly. "I photograph anything with good light," Lara said. "How practical." A pause, measured as a dose. "And how long do you plan to stay in Zafaran, given the circumstances?" "Until the embassy confirms it's safe to travel. A day or two, I imagine." "Of course." Yasmin turned to Karim with an expression of polished concern. "Have there been any updates on Hassan's movements? I was speaking with Minister Rahan this afternoon, and he seemed to feel the situation was being managed slowly." The temperature at the table changed by approximately 2 degrees. Not dramatically, just enough. "Minister Rahan should speak to me directly if he has concerns," Karim said. His voice was level. His eyes were on his plate. "I'm sure he will," Yasmin said. "I was only passing along." "Thank you, Yasmin." The conversation moved on, as conversations do when someone with sufficient authority redirects them. But Lara had been in enough conflict zones to recognize the specific quality of a ceasefire. The surface calm that exists not because the problem has been resolved, but because both sides have agreed, temporarily, to a different arena. She filed it. She ate her lamb. She watched. This was what she did. This was the skill beneath the skill. Not just the eye for light and composition, but the capacity to sit inside a situation and read it. To understand what was visible and what was being withheld, and to know the difference. Yasmin was withholding something. So was Karim. And the something they were each withholding was not, she was increasingly certain, the same thing. After dinner, the sheikh excused himself early. A call from the capital, something ministerial and immovable. Dr. Nasser cornered Lara immediately and spent a happy 20 minutes discussing exposure values, which she genuinely enjoyed. Tariq poured himself a second glass of tea and watched the room with the alert contentment of a man at a sporting event he's already bet on. Yasmin stood near the window with Karim, speaking at a low register that didn't carry. Lara watched them from behind the cover of her conversation with Nasser. She was not doing this on purpose. She was simply observant. Karim's body language was closed, arms loose but head slightly angled away. The body language of someone who is being civil at a cost. Yasmin touched his arm once, briefly, and he did not pull away. But he did not lean in either. He occupied the space between them with the studied neutrality of someone who has made a decision and is holding it. "And the focal length you used for the Minaret series," Nasser was saying. "I always assumed it must have been a very long lens, but the depth of field suggests otherwise." 85mm, she said automatically. "Prime. You lose the compression, but you gain the..." Karim looked up from across the room, directly at her. Not because she'd spoken loudly, she hadn't, but with the uncanny accuracy of someone whose attention had been on her peripherally and had simply, at that moment, shifted to the center. Their eyes met across the low light of the dining room, and held for a beat too long to be accidental, and too short to be anything she could name. She looked back at Nasser. "You gain the intimacy," she finished. "The subject feels close." "Remarkable," Nasser said, presumably about the lens. She excused herself shortly after and stepped out onto the courtyard terrace for air, leaning against the stone balustrade with her camera in her hands, and the night spread out below. The city's lights a slow orange burn against the dark. The desert somewhere beyond it, absolute and indifferent and vast. She raised the camera and shot the skyline without thinking. Then she turned and shot the window she'd just come through. The warm light of the dining room framed by the archway. The silhouettes of the people inside. Yasmin's profile sharp and elegant. And at the edge of frame, turned slightly toward the window, Karim. Looking out. Looking, she realized with a precision that arrived quietly and changed something. In her direction. She lowered the camera. She did not look at the photograph she had just taken. She looked at the city instead, and breathed, and told herself several calm and rational things. "The light is better from the roof terrace." She turned. Karim stood in the archway, hands in his pockets, the dinner behind him carrying on without either of them. "I'm fine here," she said. "I know." He came to stand beside her at the balustrade, leaving a careful distance between them, a distance that felt, in the warm desert night, more deliberate than comfortable. He looked at the city. She looked at the city. They stood like that for a moment that had more texture than it should have. "Yasmin," she said, because she was constitutionally incapable of not asking the questions she needed answered. "She's more than a diplomat's assistant." We were engaged 2 years ago. It ended. "She doesn't seem to think so." He looked at her then, a direct, assessing look that had nothing defensive in it and nothing evasive, just honesty, plainly worn. What Yasmin thinks and what is true have not always corresponded. She nodded. She wanted to ask more. She asked one more. "Is she dangerous?" The pause this time was different, longer, loaded with something he was deciding how to carry. "She is very intelligent," he said, "and she wants things she believes she is owed." He looked back at the city. That combination, in my experience, is always worth watching. "I'll keep that in mind." "Do." Then, unexpectedly, "The lamb, was it worth staying for?" She turned to look at him and found him already looking at her, and the question was light and the look was not. And the night was warm and the city was beautiful below them, and she was a professional. She was rational. She was... "Yes," she said, completely. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded once, as though she had confirmed something he had been uncertain about. Then looked back at the city. She did the same. They stood there together in the warm Zafari night, two people not touching, not speaking, maintaining a careful and deliberate distance. And the silence between them was the most complicated thing she had experienced in a week that had contained, among other things, a kidnapping and an involuntary marriage. Her phone, returned to her that morning with its SIM restored, lit up at 11:43 with a message from a New York number she knew by heart. Lara Marie Voss, Maya had written, in the capitals she reserved for emergencies and extreme emotion. I have been calling you for 22 hours, and you have been radio silent. And I swear to everything holy, if you are not dead, I am going to kill you. Also, I booked a flight. I land in Zafaran City tomorrow at 6 a.m. Do not tell me not to come. I am already on the plane. Respond immediately. Love you, M. Lara stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she typed, I'm fine. I'm at a palace. I got married. I'll explain at the airport. She put the phone face down on the nightstand. She looked at the ceiling. From somewhere in the palace, faint and distant, she heard a door close, measured, quiet, deliberate. His door, she thought, by the direction of it. She had no reason to know that. She knew it anyway. Next chapter. The hurricane lands. Maya's first words off the plane were not, "Are you okay?" They were, "Show me a photo of him immediately." Lara said there were no photos. Maya said that was the most suspicious thing she'd ever heard.